Okay, so 1, 2, 3, and 4 are just like what we did yesterday. In number 1, the p is by itself, yes? Or the p squared is by itself, I should say. So how do I solve it then? Square root both sides. And every time I square root, I have to remember what?
The plus minus.
The plus or minus, and the square root of 1 is not radical 1, right?
Yeah.
You're just doing one level. Okay? That was easy, right? 1 is a number that a lot of people forget you can take the square root of. Yep. All right, number 2. Is the v squared by itself? So what do? Divide by 10. That gives me v squared equals what? 2. So now that I have v squared equals 2, what do I do to solve for v? Square root it. Remembering to put what? Plus and minus. Now, can I take the square root of 2? No. So what's my next option is to see if I can draw a tree. Can I draw a tree for 2? If I can't square root it and I can't draw a tree, then I leave it in the radical. Okay. Number 3, what should I do first?
You gotta divide, subtract 1.
Subtract 1. Got to subtract before dividing because the 1 is a like term with the 325. We got to combine it. 6x squared equals, what's 325 minus 1? 324. Now what? Divide by what?
6.
That gives me x squared equals 324 divided by 6 is 54. Now I'm ready to square root, remembering that I have to include what? Plus and minus. Is the square root of 54 a nice number? No. So what's my next thing that I check? Draw a tree. So 54, that would be 2 and 27, and 27 is 3 and 9, and 9 is 3 and 3. So what can come out? A 3. So these two 3's become 1 3 outside. I don't have any more pairs because those numbers are different. So what do I do with them inside? 2 times 3 is 6. Easy peasy? All right, what do I do on number 4? Add 3. 9x squared equals what? What's negative 163 plus 3? Negative 160. Now what? So let's see. X squared is equal to negative 160 divided by 9. That's an ugly number, isn't it? I don't know that it reduces at all, does it? Nope, that's as low as I can go. All right. How do I square root something like that? So you got to square root both. I have to include my plus or minus out front, right? Now let's think about this for a minute. I have basically the square root of negative 160, and on the bottom I have the square root of 9. Yes? What is the square root of 9? 3. So I know I have a 3 on the bottom. Negative 160, I know I'm going to have to take out an I, aren't I? Because it's a negative. And then can I draw a tree for 160? Let's see, 10 and 16. 5 and 2, 4 and 4, 2, 2, 2, 2. What can I take out? 2 and 2, and 2 times 2 gives me what? So I have a 4 with my I, and what's left inside? 5 times 2 is 10. Now, when I have something like this, I can only look at something outside with something outside. Can the 4 and the 3 reduce? So I'm done right here. That one was a little bit messier simply because the top didn't simplify as nicely as it has before. Can you handle something like that though? Okay. All right, now we get into the stuff that you haven't seen yet. Why does number 5 look different than the other ones? It's got parentheses. Do you see an x squared? I don't see an x squared, but I see a parentheses that's being squared. Yeah? So I don't need to get x by itself yet. I just need to get the parentheses that's being squared by itself. So is the parentheses with that exponent of 2 by itself? Is there anything on this side of the equal sign that is not a part of that parentheses? So it is by itself. The only thing over there is the parentheses, right? I can't take the 2 out of the parentheses until I deal with the fact that it's in parentheses. So if I have this parentheses by itself, I can go ahead and square root both sides at this point, and it's going to cross out that exponent. That leaves me with just what's in the parentheses. So x plus 2 equals, what do I have on the other side?
5.
I do not have 5. I have positive and negative 5, don't I? Because I have to do the plus minus thing, right? Just like before. So technically, this is actually 2 equations written as one. It's the equation x plus 2 equals 5, and x plus 2 equals negative 5. X plus 2 equals 5, and x plus 2 equals negative 5. Those are easy to solve though, right? I can just subtract 2, and here I get x equals 3. Yes? And here when I subtract 2, what do I get? Negative 7. Not too bad? You try number 6. All right, is the parentheses all by itself? So I can go ahead and square root, correct? That gives me x plus 9 equals what? Plus or minus 2. Now, I can split it up and write it as the 2 equations like that, or let me show you another way you can do it. I know that I'm going to have to subtract 9, correct? I can do my 2 addition problems or subtraction problems right here. I can do positive 2 minus 9 and negative 2 minus 9. What is positive 2 minus 9? Negative 7. And what's negative 2 minus 9? I can do it like that without having to spend all that time writing. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, how is number 7 different? It's not by itself. So what do you think I need to do first? Add 6, exactly. That's going to give me x minus 6 squared is equal to what? 10 plus 6 is 16. Now I'm right back where I was. So what do? Square root both sides. That gives me x minus 6 equals what? Plus or minus 4. How do I solve that? Add 6. So I have positive 4 plus 6 and negative 4 plus 6. What's positive 4 plus 6? And negative 4 plus 6? So my 2 answers are 10 and 2. Okay? You take a minute and try number 8. All right, what do I do first? Subtract 5. That leaves me with x plus 5 squared equals what? Negative 81. Now what do? Square root. So x plus 5 equals, did anyone get the square root of 81, negative 81? plus or minus 9i. Right? Because the square root of positive 81 is 9, but because it's negative, you got to put the I with it. So the last thing I do is I'm going to subtract 5. Now this one's a little bit different because can I take 9i and subtract 5 and then negative 9i and subtract 5? I can't subtract those because they're not like terms. So let me show you how I write my answer. You're going to write the minus 5 part first, and then you're going to write plus and minus 9i. So the plus and minus term comes last. And we're going to see that type of term a lot over the next couple weeks. So? Okay. What do you think I do in number 9? Nope, I can't distribute because this has a squared on it. It's not just regular parentheses. I need to get rid of what's not in the parentheses. So how do I get rid of what's not in the parentheses? I divide both sides by what? 6, so it cancels out there. That leaves me with x minus 6 squared is equal to 144 divided by 6 is 24. Now what? Square root both sides. So x minus 6 equals plus or minus radical 24. Is the square root of 24 a nice number? No, so let me draw a tree. 2 and 12, 3 and 4, 2 and 2. What can come out? So I have x minus 6 equals plus or minus 2 radical what? 6. Now I need to add the 6 so that the x is by itself. Now, can I add 6 to the 2? Are they like terms? No, because one of them has a radical 6, the other one doesn't. That's like trying to say, that's like me saying 2x plus 6. I can't add those two because they're not like terms. 2 radical 6, this one would have to have a radical 6 to match it also. So I have another one where I'm going to need to leave it in this type of form. So what should I write first? The 6. And then I write what? Plus and minus 2 radical 6. That's my final answer. Okay. All right. You take a minute and try number 10. That should be my starting place, right? So far, so good. This time I would add 4. So how do I write my answer? X equals 4 plus or minus 5 radical 2. And that's how I leave my answer. You okay with this? All right. Happy studying.